I've got one source saying protein powder is the worst thing in the world and there's all these heavy metals. And then the next source saying, everybody and their mother should be on protein powder. There are new studies coming out every single day. It's important to weed through those studies and make sure that they're built correctly, communicating the right information accurately back. But that's where I think our red flags have got to go up.
Welcome to Stronger Weekly, brought to you by Purist Nutrition. You just heard a clip from this week's guest, Connor Shehan. Connor is the Vice President of Nutrition at Rep Fitness and is the architect behind the launch of their new supplement line, Purist Nutrition, which is really focused on clean formulation, rigorous testing, and those things. Connor spent 15 years in the consumer packaged goods industry. 7 of those years had been specifically in sports nutrition. And I thought his background and his experience in an industry which has been kind of the Wild West for decades would just be so helpful for us, the consumers, to kind of understand the industry and most importantly, know how to look for high quality products, things like third party testing, purity, and most importantly, long-term safety. But before we get into the conversation on all things supplements, let's dive into this week's top health and fitness news for the week of November 30th. Let's get into it. Your first health and fitness headline has to do with smartphones and the risk of giving them too early to preteens and children. So a new analysis of the NIH's Adolescent Brain Cognitive Development Dataset, otherwise known as ABCD, reported by Axios, found that preteens who received a smartphone at age 12 or earlier had significantly higher rates of depression, obesity, and poor sleep across all adolescents. So bad, and bad. So the ABCD research team wrote, quote, smartphone access was the only digital factor that consistently predicted worse health outcomes. Researchers also emphasized that this trend remained even after adjusting for socioeconomic status, household environment, and other digital device use, suggesting something unique about smartphones. Their apps, their notifications, and social pressures may all be driving the difference. So if I'm hearing a takeaway here, folks, parents, please delay smartphone use for your kids. Remove it from bedrooms. Limit apps. Your child's brain is still under construction. Look, just hold off on the damn phones as long as you can. Next up, CDC panel recently voted to end universal hepatitis B shots at birth. So at a highly watched meeting this week, the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices voted to move away from the long-standing guideline recommending a universal hepatitis B shot for all newborns. Under the draft policy, infants born to hepatitis B negative mothers would no longer automatically receive the birth dose. During the session, as reported by CNN, one ACIP member warned, quote, "We know the birth dose works. We know it prevents infections we can't catch later." So that is a opposition to the vote. Another member cautioned, quote, "If we rely on perfect screening and perfect follow-up, we will miss children at risk." So definitely some apprehension around this change. The tension reflects a core public health dilemma. Universal policies protect the gaps, the missed screenings, the unknown maternal statuses, the chaotic birth environments. More individualized policies give parents control, but introduce more room for system failure. So this move seems part and parcel for the new RFK Jr. Regime, where there's a healthy skepticism around vaccines. I think a takeaway for anybody, if you are expecting, maybe ask your doctor, right? Ask your doctor, what is the latest studies? Don't rely just on the headlines in the news. Sit down, have that conversation, understand the risk, but, definitely don't just proceed blindly into historical recommendations for vaccines, because there does seem to be a shifting landscape on that front, but just be cautious. We don't want to put these useless, potentially dangerous, pokes and prods into our kids if we don't have to, but we also don't want to set those same kids up to get sick later and actually impact them and their communities. So tread with caution. Your next health and fitness headline finds that vigorous exercise is more efficient and can have the same benefits of longer bouts of cardio. So a new Nature Communications study analyzing more than 73,000 adults in the UK found that just 1 minute of vigorous exercise delivers the same long-term health protection as 4 and even up to 9 minutes of moderate activity or nearly an hour of light movement. Translated, doing 5 minutes of sprints, all out effort, back off, all out effort, back off, could have the same health impact as 30 to 60 minutes of a long jog. So just an awesome study. So lead author Dr. Matthew Amati of the University of Sydney told The Independent, quote, short bouts of vigorous exercise offer a remarkably efficient alternative to longer sessions of moderate activity. The authors noted that these benefits applied even to adults who didn't formally exercise, meaning everyday bursts, things like taking stairs fast, quick sprints with your kids, a short uphill walk, counted towards measurable reductions in mortality risk. So takeaway, folks, there's more and more studies coming around about the benefits of having a higher VO2 max, meaning you are training your heart to be able to sustain near maximal efforts. And these health benefits help significantly increase our health span, help you live longer, healthier. So my suggestion to you is don't throw out the moderate cardio, don't throw out the jogs and the brisk walks. Just add in some HIIT, some high intensity interval training 1 or 2 times a week. It doesn't have to be for 15 minutes. It could be 5-minute sessions, and you're going to be making sure you're bulletproofing your heart and your health and living longer, healthier. Next up, a practical fitness headline for you. New studies emerging showing the benefits of jump rope. That's right, age-old jump rope. So a 10-week controlled trial published in the International Journal of Sports Physiology and Performance followed 96 amateur runners and found that replacing just 5 minutes of their usual warm-up with jump rope significantly improved reactive strength, running economy, and 3K time trial performance. So study author, good luck with this name, Dr. Inigo Majuka wrote, quote, skipping rope resulted in significant improvements in reactive strength index and running performance compared with a control group. Researchers highlighted that jumping rope provided a low-impact form of plyometrics that strengthened foot arches and increased tendon stiffness, qualities essential for running efficiently and avoiding overuse injuries, especially as adults lose natural elasticity with age. So I had a recent guest on, Coach Steve Sayoun, who's a renowned MMA coach, and he talked about the importance of this elastic qualities of our tendons, right, to prevent, injury and make us more athletic and stronger. And I started skipping rope as my primary warm-up. So I strength train 5 times a week. I do 5 minutes of skipping rope. Sometimes it's both feet. I alternate feet. And I have to tell you, when I run, there's less pain. I feel faster. When I'm lifting, I feel better. So just if there's one takeaway here, that elastic qualities, doing things like plyometrics, jumps, skipping rope, box jumps, things like that, more and more studies coming out, really just proving of how healthy that is for our long-term health and overall athleticism. So if you're not skipping rope, you might want to start. And your last health and fitness headline of the week. This one is the weekly weird news. A new study finding that, maybe I need to get more mature here on this show, but smelling your own gas could have health benefits. A Johns Hopkins team studying Alzheimer's-related degeneration found that hydrogen sulfide, the same gas responsible for the smell of flatulence, restored a key cellular process in mice and improved memory and motor function. Senior author Dr. Solomon Snyder said in a press release, quote, hydrogen sulfide restores a critical protein modification, sulfahydration, which is markedly reduced in Alzheimer's disease. I apologize. It's tough for me to take this seriously, but it is serious. Co-author Dr. Bindu Paul added, quote, our findings identify a new molecular target and suggest a potential therapeutic avenue of sulfur smelling, if you will. So hydrogen sulfide is already known to play a role in vascular health, inflammatory signaling, and cellular energy production. And this study adds to a growing body of work suggesting that low-dose delivery, not the everyday version you smell, may have protective effects on aging issues. So again, folks, that is a real study. There are health benefits to actually smelling your own gas. Perhaps because of my protein consumption, I am a notorious crop duster in and around my house. My entire family knows about it. I won't say that they enjoy that. But what this what this study tells me is that I can now say to my wife, see that, honey? This whole time I've been crop dusting around here. It was actually for your benefit. It was for you because I love you, family. So that's it for this week's health and fitness headlines, folks. Hope you learned something. Hope you maybe enjoyed that last bit there. And it was serious, by the way. Just a quick word from our sponsor, and then Connor Shehan joins us on the other side. We'll see you there. All right, let's be honest. You're probably not a professional athlete with a personal chef and unlimited recovery time. If you're like me, you're hitting the gym at 5 a.m. before work or squeezing in training between meetings, just trying to stay consistent while life keeps throwing you curveballs. That's exactly who Purist Nutrition was made for. Purist keeps it simple. NSF certified supplements with minimal, clean ingredients that actually taste good. No artificial ingredients and no proprietary blends where you're guessing what you're taking. Just premium actives like CreaPure, the purest creatine on the planet, whey isolate protein that is US sourced and easy on the stomach, and hydration that keeps you going without all the extra sugar or sodium. Whether you're a parent juggling kids and training, or just someone who refuses to compromise on quality, Purist Nutrition fits your routine. Built for tomorrow, science-backed, tested and trusted by athletes, and most importantly, effective. Visit puristnutrition.com to see the full lineup of quality supplements. That's puristnutrition.com, because your nutrition should work as hard as you do. All right, everyone, welcome back to Stronger Weekly. I'm here with my special guest of the week, Connor Shehan of Purist Nutrition. What's up, Connor?
What's up, Jesse? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's good to see your handsome face. Yeah, back at you. Back at you.
We kind of look similar. I mean, we're pretty generic looking guys, but you're looking good, man.
My wife called us brothers from another mother. Besides the point, it is the day before Thanksgiving when we're recording this. Although people listening, it's after Thanksgiving. Look, man, I know you're a busy guy. You've got little kids just like I do. And you're particularly busy right now because you are near the finish line of launching Purist Nutrition. And we're going to get into exactly what that is and why it matters and why that's exciting. But what we're going to talk about today, I think it's an important topic because I've personally been using supplements for 20 years, right? We're going to talk about supplements, what they're meant for, why they matter. And I think most importantly, what we're going to focus on is why quality matters when folks are considering a supplement, right? So that's what we're going to get into. But just for my audience to get to know you a little bit, can you just give a little bit about your background and what you find yourself doing right now with Purist Nutrition?
Yeah, so Connor Shehan, I am the Vice President of Nutrition here at Rep Fitness. So we'll talk about Purist Nutrition quite a bit today. Purist Nutrition, you can think of it as like a sub-brand of Rep Fitness. For the listeners, we make just about every type of, hey, look at that, come on, product placement. We make everything, man, strength related. So we're best known for, really high quality squat racks and cable machines, barbells, dumbbells. Been in the industry, and when I say industry, consumer packaged goods, kind of broad food spectrum, for about 14 years now. Got started out on the big kind of corporate side with like Pepsi and Kellogg's. Kind of cut my teeth there, learning the business, if you will. After that, spent some time in pet food, which was an interesting venture to say the least. Good experience. I'm kind of glad I'm out of that, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. Lots of lessons learned and got to, again, cut my teeth on like the manufacturing side, packaging side, things like that. And specifically within sports nutrition, I've been doing that for about 7 years now. And yeah, I've been in sales and marketing functions pretty much my entire career, quite a bit of supply chain and operations as well. But my bread and butter has always been sales and marketing. And if I had to kind of call out one thing that I've been really passionate about and what really makes sense to me is just like understanding the consumer. So I, just like you, I try to stay up to date on consumer trends, what consumers are thinking, how they're buying, how they're purchasing, because that comes in cycles and it changes all the time. Sustainability is one that comes to mind, right? Like that's a big topic right now. So that's kind of my background. My role at Rep Fitness is more or less running the Purist Nutrition brand. I came in and we had some changes to make from a formula perspective, flavor perspective, and even what products we were selling, even down to like the packaging itself, like the fun stuff, the branding, the merchandise, the colors, all of that fun stuff. So it has been by a large margin the most challenging year of my career, but at the same time, it's been the most rewarding. At this time, we're about a week and a half away from launching. and I can't wait, man. I put my heart and soul into this thing. So I'm excited.
Yeah, heck yeah. I'm excited for you. Let's talk about the supplement industry. We'll kind of start high level. My own kind of anecdotal, maybe intuitive thought around supplements is historically not very regulated, somewhat of a Wild West type industry, for the longest time. When you just kind of think about the industry itself, where is it today? Is it becoming more regulated? Is it becoming safer? Like, just kind of just unpack the industry, pun intended.
Historically, I think there's been kind of a black eye on the supplement industry for quite a while. That goes back to when it was truly the wild, wild west, where you could put anything in a powder format or anything in a beverage, sell it, and you're good. It's definitely changed since then. Just in terms of the safety, the quality, we'll go in length at quality, but at a high level, everything is regulated. Unfortunately, it's those bad players, the minority that make the rest of us look bad. It's counterfeit product. That's a massive issue. If you look at Amazon right now, that's been a big priority of theirs is, if Purist Nutrition goes and sells on Amazon, there could be a third party seller that purchases our product, sells a counterfeit product. And at that point, who knows what's going on in that? And then your health becomes, at risk there. So yeah, the wild, wild west mentality. I always think of like the Jacked 3D days. If you remember,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
that was the real deal, but that's when it was, seemingly pretty unregulated. If you look at, I think there's two important delineations here, which is a nutrition facts panel and a supplement facts panel. So if you turn around any package, where it has the ingredients and the in the amounts of each ingredient, a nutrition facts panel is regulated as a food. So that's FDA regulated as a food. Typically where you'll see that is like a protein powder. The inverse of that, or the opposite of that, would be a supplement facts panel, which is still regulated by the FDA. It's just not regulated as a food. There are some nuances for sure, even coming down to like what you can and can't say. So we would call that a label claim. If you see a product that says, making this up, but cures cancer, like, okay, well, obviously that doesn't seem very regulated. So what you say on packaging is very important too, but the regulations for the industry have been so buttoned up over the past maybe 5 to 10 years.
Why has it changed?
I think it's because of those bad players that, unfortunately, some of it's really dangerous, right? Jacked 3D was a fun product generally because it was chock full of stimulants and you got a great work, but it wasn't safe. So consumer safety has led to higher quality standards and more regulation. There's an article that came out, I think it was Consumer Reports, on the heavy metal testing.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did. Yeah.
It's a good and a bad thing, right? There's people are looking at this industry through a microscopic lens. That's good. We want that attention. We want the eyeballs. Unfortunately, that's a very skewed study and skewed article, and it's a little misleading. So that's where it starts to become confusing for consumers. There's so much information out there. What the heck do I pay attention to? I've got one source saying protein powder is the worst thing in the world, and there's all these heavy metals. And then the next source saying, everybody and their mother should be on protein powder. So sorting through all of that noise is pretty difficult. But to answer your question, the regulation has increased because of consumer safety. Ingredient safety, these raw ingredients that are coming into manufacturing facilities, they need to be tested. They need to be tested several times before, during, and after to make sure that they're safe. For one, I'm really proud of where our industry is going. There are people that have been in the industry for a lot longer than I have, but I go back to my consumer days when I would take any pre-workout under the sun.
Yeah, same.
My caffeine tolerance was probably a little too high, but it's come a long way, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. And you know what, Connor, I can remember, since you said that, as a consumer, I'm trying to picture the first time someone tossed me a tub of a supplement and said, "Hey, Jesse, do this." And I can remember, it was, not to date myself, but I was a varsity quarterback, really just starting to do some strength training and stuff like that. And a good friend of mine passed me a tub of, I think it was, man, this is going back, but NO Explode, I want to say. It was like a pre-workout. And I got to say, back to like safety, right? Here
Yeah.
I was, 18 years old. It's not like my parent was in that conversation. It's just, hey, Jesse, take this. I didn't hesitate for a second. I just popped in. Of course, it said 1 scoop. I did 2 because I was a knucklehead. I threw it in there and I had no idea what I was taking. And I can remember over the years, like just reading these horror stories where like young athletes would have these like serious health like adverse impact of like, I remember like ephedrine was in, like there was all these like unregulated things and people were like literally, dying from taking all these like stimulants and things. So I'm grateful that the industry, in my words, not yours, is maybe like catching up to say the food industry in the regulatory aspect. I think that's good for everybody.
100%, man. Yeah. And I would even say the food industry, again, nothing is perfect. And the food industry has a lot of catching up to do. I think we all know that. The prevalence of ultra processed foods, like,
Oof.
it's a big deal. Considering the obesity numbers in America and 40-something% of young men aren't fit for the military. They can't pass any sort of health or mental health exam. That's sad, man. Like, so we've got some work to do ahead of us on the food and the supplement side. But it's funny you brought up NO Explode. That was my exact first pre-workout. And if you remember, like when your body hasn't experienced, maybe that level of caffeine or beta alanine or niacin or all these different ingredients, I remember like feeling kind of freaked out, and
Anxious,
very anxious and like, yeah, sure. You get a great workout, but at what expense? That's the fence that Purist Nutrition is riding is like this equal parts physical performance meets overall health and wellness. You can have both. I just think you have to be really intentional about how you go about it. But we're not perfect, like I said. And I say we, meaning the industry. There's still some stuff we got to iron out. You brought up the age thing. Like, I think when I took that NO Explode, I was probably 15, 16 years old. Parents, of course, weren't in that conversation. I just got past the tub in the gym. I'm sure I dry scooped it, but there is a possibility that we over-index too. New York and I believe a couple other states are passing some legislation around. I see both sides of that because you take that NO Explode example, or a crazy high stim pre-workout, and as a father, I'd be like, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that discussion and conversation with my kids. They don't need to be 18 to go buy a bag of protein powder either, or vitamin D. If you have a vitamin D deficiency. So
it's like, where do you draw the line? If you are going to regulate it and limit it legally to people who are not adults, where do you draw that line? Protein supplements, things like that seem to be on one side, and pre-workout stimulants stuff, in my opinion, should be on another category,
Yeah. And, caffeine and creatine are the number one and number 2 most studied, most proven supplements out there. They work. They increase performance significantly. They're incredibly safe too. But, do I want, when my kid's 15, 16, 17, I don't want them to have an 800 milligram caffeine a day tolerance. You know what I mean? Like that's short-term performance versus, overall health and longevity. It's just something to think about. But yeah, I mean, I think we see it very similarly for sure.
Yeah. So going back to the whole, like putting on my consumer kind of hat here. I have been exposed to this term of third-party testing, right? And I'm just picturing myself walking through your big box shop like a Target, because Target has like supplements and stuff. When it comes to third-party testing, can you kind of unpack the different types, why it matters, and maybe what consumers should look for? I know like NSF, informed choice, there's all different types, but can you just kind of big picture what is third-party testing and then maybe drill down like, and why is that important?
It's important for safety. If you do have a bad player in the business that's, putting who knows what into a powder, and then they pass that off to NSF saying, hey, we just want the badge, right? We just want your logo on our packaging. And it doesn't match what's in the product. It'll get flagged. So that's a good thing. It protects the consumers. There's also just different types of third-party labs. NSF Sport, in my opinion, is top of the top. So they essentially test for a lot of different things. They test for banned substances. So if you're a professional athlete, when you see that, or collegiate athlete, when you see that NSF Sport logo, you know that you're safe to take that product. So that's important. It verifies what the label says is true. That's a big deal too. So if we say that there's no sucralose in our pre-workout and NSF tests it, they'll come back and say there is certifiably no sucralose in this pre-workout. That's good. Informed Sport and Informed Choice is another one that I think the world of. I've got some experience using them in the past. They're a great company, great third-party lab. And yeah, they did a study a while back. I'm for sure going to botch these numbers, but they did a study saying that 60 to 70%, I think it was in that ballpark, of protein products didn't match their protein claim on the package. Which means if we say that we've got 25 grams of protein in a serving, when Informed Choice did this test, it could have been 20 grams of protein in that serving. Now, again, I would call that consumer protection in a different way. It's protecting their wallets, right? So if you think you're purchasing a certain amount of any ingredient and a company is selling you short, that's important. Short term, hey, you're 5 grams less protein in a day, not the end of the world. But if you extrapolate that over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, that's a lot of nothing that you're paying for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a big deal, man. I don't want to go down the fear tactic route. Things are generally safe. Let's just start there. We just have to be really careful about the brands and the products that we kind of gravitate towards.
Sure. Now, on that note, if I'm a brand that decides to invest in these certifications for the sake of the consumer, I have to imagine on like the supply chain side of the house, like the manufacturing and the distribution, that investment in the label of certification has to be more complicated and maybe even more expensive for the brands that choose to do that. Is that fair to say? That's
extremely fair to say. Yeah. Generally from a procurement standpoint, most of the time you're going to be fine, right? You don't need to change suppliers to go, source an ingredient from a different location or a different country. Generally speaking, it's business as usual. But from a price standpoint, it's extremely expensive. I'll get into the Amazon regulations in a little bit. I think that's important to call out. But if I'm a up and coming brand, that's a massive, and look, I get it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's a huge cost, right? So when you're starting out and you don't really know your demand, you don't know how much volume you're going to sell, maybe you're not sure about product market fit, to go drop 30, 40, 50K on testing it's a big deal. I understand the dilemma there, but at the end of the day, as a consumer, that's the first thing that we've got to look for is the certifications. Maybe I just know too much at this point, but I wouldn't touch anything without those logos on there. I recommend that for everybody, even if it's, the purchasing decision leads you away from Purist Nutrition, that's fine. I would just still recommend, even if it's our competitor, look for those logos. And when you see that, you're going to be in good hands.
Let's be honest, most of us don't have a private gym, a full-time trainer, or hours every day to lift. If you're like me, you don't even have time to commute to a local gym. You're training early in the morning or carving out 40 minutes between work, kids, and everything else competing for your time. And when fitness matters that much to your well-being and your health, you've got to have home fitness equipment that's as strong and reliable as you are. That is exactly why I use Rep Fitness. Rep is built for people who train with purpose, people who need high-quality, reliable equipment engineered for real strength. Designed right here in Colorado, USA, Rep Fitness provides racks, benches, bars, and plates that offer commercial-grade durability without commercial gym prices. Premium materials, smart engineering, and fair pricing. Whether you're outfitting your very first garage gym or upgrading your current setup to match where you want to go with your training, Rep makes gear that keeps up with your life and your goals. Visit repfitness.com to see their full lineup. Racks, benches, bars, plates, conditioning tools, and everything you need to build a home gym that works as hard as you do. That's repfitness.com. It's finally time to pursue your strength. A little bit of a weedsy question here, but I'm a curious guy and I can't help myself. But let's just say you, as a brand, you, Connor, choose to invest in these certifications, which I know you are with Purist. What happens when you create this massive batch of product and you go to get it tested And then the body or the entity that's doing the testing says, nope, too much of this, not enough this, whatever. Do you have to then take that whole batch of product and basically scrap it and then like take that feedback and then build it again? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I would say generally, I haven't gone through that because everything that we've produced has passed, thank goodness. And it's the peace of mind, right? Like when you know that you're purchasing a brand, or in my case, working for a brand that has 100% pass rate, that's great. It's just a massive peace of mind. So I can't speak from a personal experience about what that process looks like. I'm fairly certain though. So first off, if something is dangerous or has an allergen in it, it's not going into the market, period. So that's a hard cutoff. If there's a dangerous amount of X, Y, and Z, or if this is a big one too. Let's say I'm producing a chocolate protein. If NSF Sport comes back and says, hey, there's actually peanuts in this, hard no. I'll be honest, like I give my kids protein because they need it. I'm not giving them a full scoop, right? But I'll litter some protein in a smoothie or something like that. If my son has a peanut allergy and there's peanuts in a protein powder where there shouldn't be, that's a very, very dangerous thing. There's been, I think it was sometime around COVID, if you remember the baby formula shortage, dangerous stuff, right? So there's significant consequences and repercussions to unsafe products. So in that case, if there's a severe allergen, it's not hitting the marketplace at all. That product is tossed. Now you've got to go back to your manufacturer, rerun all of that. You've got to purchase new packaging. It's a big deal. So it's really expensive. But at the end of the day, it's always worth it. I want consumers, even friends and family and yourself to trust what we're doing at Purist, and NSF Sport provides us that coverage, right? We know without a shadow of a doubt that what we're putting out there is safe. And I bet you can relate to this, but I always look at it through the lens of like, our hydration that we're coming out with. Would I trust putting that in my kid's drink? Again, I'm not doing full servings or anything like that, but with protein, with hydration, if my kids are out playing nonstop all day and they just haven't had a lot of water, yeah, I'm going to put a little bit in there. Do I feel good about that decision? Or am I putting that in there very begrudgingly and have a little hesitation to it? As a father, that's some of the lenses that I look at this through, is like the protein bars that we're coming out with. Would I feel okay giving that to my son or my daughter and not feeling guilty about it?
Yeah, that's a good bar. That's a good bar to set for yourself. Because as I think about that, like as a dad myself, I'm much more likely to put some unknown, questionable stuff in my own body, but I would not turn and give it to my children. And it's probably a practice that I should adopt for myself as well, so that I can live longer. Frankly.
I mean, yeah, for sure, right? Like I probably got to look in the mirror. I know I do for sure, man. And all of this entire conversation, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Like we're literally just doing the best we can with the information we have at our disposal. It's definitely a position that we're taking is just an educational perspective. Like there are new studies coming out every single day, right? And it's important to weed through those studies and make sure that they're built correctly, that they're communicating the right information accurately back. But that's something we want to lean into because there's always new insights coming out. And truthfully, that's going to help inform like our innovation pipeline. What kind of products are we even thinking of coming out with down the road? Some of these studies definitely help inform that.
Yeah. When I think about long-term risks as a kickoff to this, there's going to be a question in here, I promise. Bear with me, Connor. You mentioned ultra-processed foods earlier. And, part of my job with this podcast is to curate news, and I kick off every episode with news. Last week, I covered a story around ultra-processed foods. A massive study came out about the long-term effects of consuming UPFs, as they're called. And they're finding that UPFs are connected to some killers in society, things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, etc. Now, UPFs have been around since the 50s and 60s. I've always wondered on the topic of supplements, how much do we not know about the long-term risks of some of these sketchy supplements and ingredients that people have been putting into their bodies before regulatory bodies have caught up with making sure they're safe? And that to ask, my preface, I know you're not a medical provider, and I know that's not like the hat that you wear, but you live in that world and it's adjacent to health. What do you think, or what might you guess are some of the longer term risks that consumers are stepping into if they're not cautious around the supplements that they put into their body?
It's a good question, Jesse. Hope I've got a good answer to it. Well, I'll kind of spoil it. Like, I don't have a one word answer to that. And I don't think a lot of people would. Again, there are scientific minds out there that could tell you, like, in depth, hey, take this ingredient over the course of 20, 30 years. Here's what could happen. I just don't have that knowledge, but we have very good, I mentioned caffeine and creatine. I would carve those out just because they're incredibly safe. They're the most studied ingredients out there. But if you look at something, even a good ingredient, right? Like citrulline malate or beta alanine, like, if you've been in the pre-workout space and you've taken a pre-workout, you probably know what beta alanine is. It's tingles, itchy face, man. And you take that over time and it's this little trigger, like you feel the itch and you're like, all right, that means go time. I'm ready to get it. Now, there are significant performance benefits to beta alanine, but to answer your question, if somebody takes, let's say the recommended dose of beta alanine every 5 days a week, let's say they work out 5 days a week, they take it every day for 30 years. I don't know the consequences of that. And I think that's another opportunity for our industry, and I would say the broader CPG and food industry as well. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those things where studies take money, and who wants to fund? I hope somebody does, but who wants to fund that 30, 40-year study? I actually have a little bit of fear of that myself, to be honest with you. Is like, have you ever seen those the commercials on TV about mesothelioma and have you or a loved one ever been impacted? I have this nightmare of 30 years from now, you and I are sitting, in our recliners.
Did you take NO Explode in 2004?
Yeah. You've got $1,000 check waiting for you. So of course I hope that doesn't come into fruition, but all the data that we have right now says that those ingredients are safe for consumption. So again, we do what we can given the information we have. Those ingredients are safe. Now, I would also go back to the origin of a lot of these ingredients. When they're naturally derived and it's a natural ingredient, common sense tells me we're going to be okay. Now, when they're cooked up in a lab, if you take like the fake meat, right? Like, I don't even want to know what's going to happen if I have that every day for 10 years. I can guess what's going to happen. I'm going to be a wreck. So in my mind, if we peel back the onion a little bit and look at the source of that, one ingredient that we're using, it's called Zynamite, is now a fancy name, but it's just mango bark. So again, I look at the source of that being mango bark, and common sense again tells me we're going to be fine. But it's something to keep in front of us 100%.
Yeah. On that note, I know that you've generously sent me some Purist Nutrition supplements. I'm waiting on the pre-workout. I can't wait to try it. But I did what most busy people do the other day. I had my daughter ask me for some markers, so I stopped at a Walgreens and I realized I was out of pre-workout. So what did I do? I just walked down the aisle and said, I'll grab that thing. And I grabbed the thing. I don't even want to say what brand it is, but when I got home, it's like I knew an ingredient. I know what caffeine is. I don't know what caffeine anhydrous is, whatever. I assume it's the same. But I went down and all of a sudden it said proprietary blend. And then it was almost like within that, it was a bunch of words that looked like prehistoric dinosaurs or Harry Potter wizards. I don't know what these words were, but it was just like, don't know, don't know, don't know. And what have I been doing? I've been taking it anyway. And it's like, I think to myself, because I asked you a complicated question, what are the downstream impacts long term? It's hard to know, but it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And I'd rather not take the friggin' risk. I don't want to be the one that's responding to that commercial in 30 years, not a question there, just a reaction.
No, I'm 100% with you. Proprietary blends is one thing that, when we talk about like having a black eye on the industry, I think that's one of the things that kickstarted that stereotype about supplements is hiding behind a proprietary blend. Now, so there's a couple different types though. So one wouldn't necessarily be a proprietary blend, but if I go start my own supplement company and it's Connor's Super Blend, And you're like, okay, well, what the heck does that mean?
I wouldn't
But
take
then
that.
well, you take it. You do.
Go
You
ahead.
do. And then underneath that Connor Super Blend, it actually lists out, every single ingredient and the amount. It's just a fancy blend name that we're kind of winging for a marketing purpose, let's say. But it does actually show the equation, if you will, of what makes up that super blend. So that's I would carve that out a little bit just because you're starting to see that less and less. But there are some brands that'll say, super strength matrix blend, and then it shows what that actually is. It's technically transparency. It's just a little goofy. The other end is a true proprietary blend where it'll say Connor's proprietary blend, 10,000 milligrams. Well, 10,000 milligrams of what? That's where I think our red flags have got to go up. Now, I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt to say, oh, well, maybe there's 10,000 milligrams of really awesome things in there and organic fruits and vegetables and trademarked ingredients that have a bunch of clinical data behind it. Realistically, maybe there is some of that, but you also just don't know. You'll never know because it's proprietary. Now, some brands, just to give the benefit of the doubt, some brands will do that to protect what's in the ingredient or what's in the product so that a competitor can't replicate it. But again, you're starting to see that less and less too. It's over the past maybe 4 years, you're starting to just see full transparency. And I dig that for a couple reasons. It's saying, hey, as Purist Nutrition, here's what we're doing. If you want to copy it, like, go for it. We're not hiding behind anything. So I totally get the hesitation anytime you see these like breaks. It'll look like a paragraph break almost in the supplement facts panel. And then you start to see a bunch of stuff that you don't really know what it is. So we take the methodology of shorter is better 99% of the time. Nice, effective doses, short ingredient panels. We could jam a bunch of stuff into one product, but at what point are you sacrificing price? I don't think anyone wants to pay $100 for anything. And I would also say taste too. The more stuff you add into a product, the more that you're going to have to rely on, even if it's natural flavors, that amount of natural flavors you'll have to increase because there's so many things going on that you have to mask.
I didn't realize that. So you have to mask the more ingredients, the more that artificial, that you have to put more of the flavoring in there just to make it even like palatable for someone to take.
100%. The flavoring aspect is actually important, right? If you see natural flavors as the first ingredient in any supplement, that just means there's a crazy amount of natural flavors in there. It may taste awesome, but it kind of leads itself into that ultra processed foods conversation, right? Like, do you and I need to have a 10 out of 10 taste experience with every single thing that we put into our bodies? I would personally argue no. I think it's the American way of like, I'm going to enjoy every single thing that I put in my body today.
Yeah,
and if I don't,
I just want the benefit. I want the intended benefit. I don't care necessarily, and this is just me, about the experience. I just want the outcome.
Yeah. And I think that's a healthy way to look at it. And, I love a good steak. I love a good cheat meal, all the stuff. I want that to taste good. Not saying we should sacrifice everything, but yeah, it just feels like maybe an American thing of like every single thing we put in our bodies has got to be a 10 out of 10 taste experience, or we're never buying it again, despite the benefits,
Right. Look, if you're like me, you enjoy a drink every now and then. A glass of wine with dinner, a cold beer after a long week, maybe even a night out with friends. But you want to stay in control. That's why I'm excited about Clutch, the newest innovation from Or Health. Clutch is a fast-acting naltrexone mint you take before you drink. It dissolves quickly, absorbs through your mouth, and starts working fast, helping you curb the cravings without giving up drinking altogether. It's discreet, portable, and designed for real life. The mints come in a sleek, pocket-sized case that goes wherever you go. If you've been trying to moderate or simply drink smarter, this is the tool that you need. To get started, text STRENGTH to 710-710. That's STRENGTH to 710-710. Answer a few quick questions, and your Clutch will be shipped directly to your door. No more hangovers, no more guilt, just the control you need in the palm of your hand. Bulletproof your drinking with Clutch now. All right, that's super helpful, Connor. I want to move into, I guess, what I'll call like your own suggestions, recommendations around supplements, how they fit into a lifestyle and all that. But you did mention earlier something about Amazon, maybe like some changing processes there. Can you just kind of unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I wish I had an Amazonian in my ear telling me all the details of this, but I don't. So we experienced this as we're launching Purist, which is why kind of my experience with it so far. But Amazon now requires any new dietary supplement brand or product that's being loaded to the platform to have a third-party lab certification tied to it. Now, if I, off the top of my head, I know NSF is one of them. There's another UL Labs, I believe. So they have three kind of preferred partners. And as Purist Nutrition, I'm not allowed to load new products onto Amazon without those certifications. So that if you take that and kind of apply it to the broad supplements industry, that's a really good direction that we're going in. Now, in their case, part of that, again, consumer safety, I'm sure is a big part of that reason. Another reason is that counterfeit product I mentioned. So that's protecting, it's Amazon protecting Amazon. I also believe that it's Amazon protecting consumers too. So you'll see some big players starting to require those third-party accredited lab certifications.
Got it. Yeah. Where do you expect, I know that you're launching the brand in just a couple of weeks, not even, but when you think about like a pie chart, where do you expect the percentage of consumers to buy your products? Would it be like direct on your website, on Amazon, brick and mortar shops? What are your expectations there?
Good question. I mean, I think it depends on what time frame we're looking at. In 2026 specifically, it's largely going to be through our website, puristnutrition.com, and Amazon. And the reason for that is most consumers purchase within the category on Amazon. It's my job to put our products where consumers are purchasing supplements and sports nutrition products. So sometimes that will be a supplement shop, vitamin shop, GNC, folks like that. Largely it's Amazon. And this is what we would call where buy data. So where do people buy this stuff? It's Amazon, it's Walmart, it's obviously the brand's website, it's Costco, it's vitamin shop. So those are kind of all on the long-term vision. But 2026 specifically, our primary focus would be Amazon, puristnutrition.com, and then wholesale accounts. So that a wholesale account would be, Connor's supplement shop, Connor's CrossFit gym, kind of getting some brick and mortar presence there.
Got it. That makes sense. That's what I would have thought, because it feels like people just go to Amazon because it's convenient, because maybe they're buying 6 other things. They might as well add something else to their cart and just go with it. They don't have to make one extra step to a different website. But 100%. Thanks for humoring me on that one. But if it's all right with you, man, let's transition to, we're kind of going to pull up again and talk about supplements in general. The word supplement itself implies that it's a supplement to something else, right? Where do you think supplements play into like an overall healthy lifestyle? How should people be thinking about how to supplement their health with supplement?
Supplements should be and need to be supplementing a very healthy diet made up of whole foods. If you're relying on, let's just say protein powder, I love protein powder. But if you're relying on that to get all of your, to hit your protein goal every day, and you're not eating chicken or beef or whole food sources, you're missing the boat. That's not the purpose of it. I get that it's convenient, and therein lies the benefit of it. So it is meant to supplement a already whole, nutritious diet day in and day out. So funny story. If you remember Liquid IV is an awesome brand that I have a lot of respect for. When they came out with their initial campaign, and I think it was just called like, do you drink enough water? On the package, they had 8 glasses of water, little icons, 8 glasses of water equals 1 packet. And, I was in the business already at this point, and I was like, oh, that's really sharp. I can understand what they're trying to say. And back when I had hair, I no longer do, but I was getting a haircut, and, the lady's asking what I do for a living, and we get to talking, and she goes, yeah, this new Liquid IV stuff, like, I don't even have to drink water anymore. I just have like 2 of those a day. And I'm like, all right. So it's kind of understanding where the consumer's head is at. In my opinion, like, there's a big responsibility as the brand in how we message and communicate that. if we message Purist Nutrition's hydration as like, hey, you're good, you don't need to, monitor your water intake, just take one scoop, like that's foolish of us. And it's not true. Short answer is that it's meant to supplement. There are some broad data points, especially in America, around like vitamin D deficiency. Gosh, upwards of 90% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. That's a scary data point. So in that sense, like, yes, we should be relying on whole food sources across the board. But even at that point, there could be some change left on the table. And that's where a good vitamin D and K2 supplement comes in. That's where a hydration supplement comes in. So they're meant to fill the gaps. My worry from a consumer perspective is that it's the first option and not option 1B. 1A is a healthy, nutritious whole food diet. 1B, cool, fill in those nutritional gaps with supplements. So again, I think it's something we just got to be aware of. If you take protein bars, like I've unfortunately hand raised on this one, I've been in this scenario, when we were 2 under 2 with our kids, it was like, I don't really have time for dinner. I'm just going to pound 2 protein bars and call it a day.
Right.
Is it ideal? No. With artificial ingredients, artificial sweeteners like sucralose and ACE K, things like that, is it fair to have this general statement of like, you better not ever drink anything with sucralose in it? Like, we should avoid it, in my opinion. We should be avoiding artificial sweeteners, colors, ingredients, things like that. But if we have one energy drink once every blue moon, is that going to kill us? Of course not. It's really just everything's in moderation, right? Now, the flip side of that story is if you have an energy drink loaded with sucralose and ACE K and all these things every single day, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I appreciate about your answer, Connor, and I'm assuming it's reflective of your entire organization, but your answer itself in that, hey, use these as supplements, but don't make it the thing. You're looking out for the health of people at the probably expense of people becoming over reliant on your products, which means more sales, right? Like you could be sitting here saying like, oh yeah, like busy guys, like have 5 protein shakes a day and take our multivitamin and hydrate with us and you're good. But I think it's a reflection of integrity that you're mindful of your consumers' overall health and lifestyle, not just how much they rely on your products. So I commend you for that. And when I think about your answer, I think I'm going to get this podcast name correct. Found My Fitness by Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I remember listening to an episode of hers and she talked about this very topic. And what she said was similar to you, supplements are great to supplement. But if you take like, say, a raw piece of broccoli, right, and you cook it, what happens in the cooking process, it's actually releasing a lot of the micronutrients in a more effective and efficient way so that when you consume it, you're getting more of the health benefits of the broccoli versus, say, grinding it up and pixie dusting it into like one overall shake. So it's one of those things where, you get your micronutrients, macronutrients best you can, but for busy dads, busy people, it's so great to have that like reliable go-to supplement to just kind of help you get to whatever your nutrition goals are. Not a question in there, but just an affirmation.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, technically we're saying don't buy as much of our stuff, right? Go buy more chicken and beef and things like that.
Right.
But it's true. I mean, I think if I were to go rely on protein powder for a week straight as my sole source of protein, I'm not doing myself any good. Is it better than nothing?
Yeah.
I'd say yes, but it's just not ideal.
Right. And creatine, which tried and true, nootropic physical performance, right? What would it take for me to get ample creatine for my fitness goals through eating steak? How much steak would I have to eat? And then what does that do to my LDL, cholesterol? Like, so there's a healthy tension between supplements and diet, I would say.
There is, man. And usually how, I have conversations like this all the time and how I explain the protein, specifically the protein. And you could say this for creatine too. To get 200 grams of protein in a day is a decent undertaking. That is a lot of yogurt and chicken and steak and eggs and all the good things that make up a healthy diet. I just don't think I have that in me. I'd be eating every 30 minutes. So in my mind, like I aim for 150 grams of protein every single day from really solid sources. And then I'll supplement 2 scoops of protein. And that's how I get to that 200. The inverse of I'm going to get 150 from protein powder. and maybe have some eggs and, a bite of chicken. So
Right. Same. And by the way, I gotta rethink my life because I'm eating like 250 grams a day. And
good on you.
You're a bigger lad than me. So maybe I should be backing off a little bit. I don't know.
No, well, I'll say this, man, it's all seasonal. It depends on goals.
Sure.
One is kind of like that, like healthy baseline, but if you're going into a competition, if you're training out the wazoo, sweet, bump it up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Ebbs and flows, just like anything else. I'm excited for this question, man. I want to hear Connor's, what am I going to call this? Connor's top 5 supplements, Connor's foundational supplement stack, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm asking. But for people listening that are maybe curious about or just reevaluating their own supplementation, what do you think the go-tos are? What should everybody consider?
Let me do this in no particular order because the pressure's killing me. So protein powder, easy. Again, it's a tried and true way to hit those goals. I would encourage anyone, if you've never, even if you're not tracking macros, I don't track macros. Really, the only thing I track is protein. If you haven't tracked protein, I would encourage everyone to just try it for a little bit and see where you land. My money is on you're far, far lower than you think you are. And what I've found personally is that when you're around that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, I feel significantly better just across the board. I feel more recovered. Physically, I feel more able. So I'd start out with protein powder. 2, I would say creatine. We've talked a little bit about it, just how tried and true it is. There's nothing more clinically proven than creatine. The tendency is just to think that people take creatine to be super strong and powerful and lean. And that is certainly true. More recently, though, the cognitive benefits, studies have been coming out on the cognitive side. I would even recommend, I've been trying to get my folks on creatine for a while. They're just, they're too stubborn. So still working on it.
Ship has sailed.
but it's neuroprotective. So if you think of all of the neurological diseases and disorders that, people come down with in their 60s, 70s, 80s, is it going to fix something that's already there? No, but it is neuroprotective. Even things with like concussions, a significant concussion, first thing I'd be doing is loading up on creatine. So creatine would be number 2. I would put hydration at number 3. I mean, think of it this way. If you go a week straight without being adequately hydrated, you're not going to feel great. And when you don't feel great, in my opinion, at least, like I don't show up as a good father or husband because I physically feel drained and lethargic and lagging. So I'd go hydration just because it's so easy. It's cheap, relatively cheap. And I think the one watch out on the hydration side is this new trend of like a massive amount of sodium in your electrolyte solution. There are some people that their physical activity warrants that much sodium. I'd say for the general population, 90+% of folks, we don't need a whole gram of sodium, after a simple workout. The American diet is so loaded with sodium already. A large percent of Americans are over consuming sodium. So sure, if I'm going to go hunting in the backcountry and be hiking 10 miles a day, yeah, maybe I'll double up on hydration that day. But generally speaking, you don't need 1,000 milligrams. So I put hydration number 3. I would put a multivitamin at 4. And I think people kind of sleep on multivitamins, but in my opinion, it just fills the gaps. It's going to create a little bit of coverage on your diet's not going to be perfect every single day. It's a good safety blanket when you have a solid multivitamin, assuming that it's in the right forms, like a methylated multivitamin with methylated B vitamins, things like that.
What does methylated mean?
It's basically higher nutrient absorption versus it's a different form of B vitamins. So it's the same as, a traditional B6, B12, whatever. But if you look for the word methyl in there, it's easier absorbed in your body.
Okay. So you get more of the intended nutrient in
Correct.
that case.
Yeah. And we, little insider baseball, we're working on a multivitamin that's going to be pretty killer. So I'm excited for that.
In what form? Are you allowed to say powder, pill, gummy? Are you allowed to share? Or is that too insider baseball?
No, we'll share because it's mostly developed at this point. It's going to be in a gummy format.
Sweet.
It's going to be really fun, man. Fruits and vegetables in there. We've got 2 ingredients that improve muscle repair and recovery. So it's actually a performance gummy for guys like us that are, out and about and trying to crush it in the gym. So really solid multivitamin, really solid sourcing, meets physical performance and recovery. That's the intention there.
Love it. So that was 4. So we'll call that a Mount Rushmore. Is there more?
I mean, I'm a sucker for pre-workout. I think you are too. So I would put a pre-workout.
Caffeine, of which pre-workout is the delivery vehicle. But go ahead. So pre-workout is in there.
There's just so much data around there about some really foundational pre-workout ingredients and its impact on performance. It's tried and true. Now let me backtrack for like 5 seconds here. Assuming that your multivitamin is a really all-encompassing multivitamin, I would put pre-workout at 5. A D vitamin with a K2, so I think it's D3K2, would be right there with a pre-workout. That's probably my favorite. If you want to call it like a standalone supplement, it's not a multivitamin where it has a bunch of vitamins and minerals in it. It's fairly standalone. That would be there too. Bone health, heart health, immunity. It's a killer one. And again, it's cheap. You're talking, I think it's maybe 50 cents. Another spoiler alert, our multivitamin gummy actually has a full dose of vitamin D and vitamin K2 in there.
So you're getting 2 for 1 benefit there.
Yeah, it's kind of 3 for 1. It's a multivitamin, it's a D3K2, and it's muscle repair and muscle recovery as well.
Dang. Question, if I could, on the creatine. Protein daily, right, as needed. Creatine, daily dosage. I'm kind of pushing you up against the boundaries of recommending protocols here, but
creatine would be like the one that I can kind of write my name on there. So 5 grams a day, every single day on creatine. Now, some of those newer benefits that you and I were talking about, like cognitive health and where you start to see those benefits is more along, I think it's like 10 to 15 grams. Personally, I've actually seen some at 5 though. I'm probably not getting as much as I can get out of creatine with my dose, but 5 every single day, you'll feel like a new person, especially so in the gym. If you go from no creatine to creatine, this was ages ago when I did this little personal study, but my numbers jumped 10%, like pretty quickly. And, as guys that have been in the gym for a while, like 10%, that could take you 5-10 years to go up 10% on a squat, So it really does work. I've seen the benefits firsthand, but the one thing I would call out on creatine is it's kind of an old stereotype. I mean, you technically could do it, but this loading phase, where you do 20 grams a day for 2 weeks and then you taper off, you don't need to do that. It's just 5 grams a day and you will feel like a new person.
Yeah, I personally do 2 heaping 5-gram scoops. So it's probably like 14 or 15 because I just throw it in there.
Flowing a little bit.
Yeah, you got to do the heaping. Similar question, practical in nature on the hydration piece. Would you recommend that as like a daily foundation to take a hydration supplement, or more as needed based on how you're feeling and what you're planning on doing?
Yeah, so the only reason I would say daily is because I think what most consumers think is like, oh, well, I drink enough water, I'm hydrated. That's good, but it's not necessarily true because our bodies need the right ratio of sodium, potassium, magnesium, and water, H2O, to function the best that we can. So water alone doesn't necessarily cut it. I wish it did, in which case, I would argue that a hydration supplement is much less important, but that's why I would say daily, because I just know that my ratios aren't where they should be. Drinking water enough, like if you've ever gone on a long hike or done a 2 a day or, back in your boot camp days, sometimes you can feel it. Like even doesn't matter how much water you chug, you're still like, man, I'm just beat up. Like I can't feel like I can recover. There's a decent chance that your body needed that sodium, potassium, magnesium to catch up. So I would say daily on that, but use your best judgment. If you're feeling good, you're feeling great, skip it. I've just kind of inherited that into my daily habits, like I don't really even think about it anymore. I'll do a scoop of creatine and scoop of hydration. And that's after my breakfast. I feel pretty good after that.
Yeah. Helps with sleep quality too. I know that from studies and from personal experience. If you're well hydrated, you'll have higher efficient sleep, deep and REM and all that. One last specific question on the hydration piece. And you mentioned liquid IV earlier. I used to use liquid IV often until I started implementing fasting into my life. And what I found was like liquid IV as one such product, tons of sugar, in that particular product. What say you on that? Is that a necessary thing? Does that help with the delivery of it? Like why the need for that? Do you know?
I do know. I'm going to try to do my best without throwing anyone under. If memory serves, I believe Liquid IV has around 11-ish grams of sugar in one pack. Let's call it 10 for simplicity's sake. So 10 grams of sugar per serving in a packet. Now, there is data that shows that glucose, sugar, helps deliver those electrolytes into our bodies. So if you look at the Liquid IV packaging, it in big bold letters, it says CTT, Cellular Transport Technology.
Yeah.
That's sugar. So sugar helps move that into our bodies.
Sounds like a bullshit phrase, if you ask me. But go ahead.
I mean, but imagine being the guy that came up with CTT. You'd be like, hey, I'm pretty smart.
Pretty slick.
It's a big pat on the back, like,
yeah,
came up with a new technology. So that is true that sugar does help that. In my prior life, we actually did a test on that just to see, like, we were in the middle of developing a hydration SKU, and we're like, well, I don't know, our competitor has this, maybe it does help. We don't know how much sugar is needed to help that delivery. So we actually tested that internally, and it came back that like 2 to 3 grams was all that was needed, which means that delta 3 grams to 10 grams is because it tastes awesome. Cellular transport technology, true, does help delivery, not at 10 grams, from my understanding. Could be wrong on that. I don't think I am. Now, I will say too, like, it's not like we do a sugar-free version, so ours actually doesn't have any sugar. And from a delivery standpoint, you're not talking like 10x higher bioavailability when you add sugar in there. Is it improved? Yes, slightly. Now, the reason we went with the sugar-free, again, is we're trying to look at the macro environment here. We consume too much sugar. We just do. Everybody does. So if we can do our part in just limiting that a little bit every single day, then awesome. Let's do it. I've been doing this for a bit, and I love it. It's what I'm passionate about. And I actually feel a responsibility to help address some of the macro stuff that's going on. I talked about metabolic health. 90+% are metabolically unhealthy. So what can we do to help support that?
Limit sugar.
Well, that, and we added some ingredients into our creatine and our hydration that actually help your metabolism. It helps your body metabolize things and supports a healthy metabolic response. Is that the cure-all? Of course not. But again, it's kind of just doing our small part.
Yeah, I know. Here's one singular data point for you to affirm your team's decision on that, right? I work out fasted in the morning. I take creatine. Why would I take Liquid IV with 10 grams of sugar and put that in my creatine like you do if it's going to break my fast? So it goes against some of those goals. So, hey, for this guy, that makes sense to me. One, potentially two more questions for you, but it has to do with the industry. You just mentioned competition. There's a lot of competition out there. It's a noisy category. We've already talked about, how there's some bad players in their category, but there's a lot of options out there. You're launching this new venture here with Rep Fitness, Purist Nutrition. What are you excited about? What's going to make it different? What do you believe in? And why do you think, consumers are going to kind of pick up on it and jump over to Purist?
Let me start out with the product itself, and then I'll kind of go into maybe what makes us different as a brand versus the product. So the product itself, as clean as it gets, just plain and simple, 0 artificial ingredients. So, we mentioned sucralose and ACE-K. We're staying leagues away from that. No artificial flavors, artificial colors. I would put us up against any competitor in the entire space, and we're either going to be neck and neck or we're going to win across just about every spectrum. So from a product perspective, I've got all the belief in the world. NSF Sports, so trust, credibility, safety, things like that. We check the box there too. Learn to love, like these guys at NSF Sport are so buttoned up. They are so knowledgeable. They're a relatively new supplier of mine. So I'm just this year, I've started to work with them. I could get them on the horn right now and ask them like any question, and they're on it, man. So it's not just a badge. It's not just covering our butts, in case someone gets sick. Like, they're the cream of the crop, and that's why we're going with them. Another piece, we haven't even mentioned this, but I did mention kind of like the responsibility that I think we have of doing the right thing. And we are actually a plastic net neutral product line. And what that means is essentially any plastic that we do use, we are offsetting that plastic use by funding recycling projects around the world. To backtrack a little bit, we actually use post-consumer recycled plastic. So there's a bunch of different types of material out there. The vast majority, everyone I can think of in the space uses virgin plastic when they create a tub or a bag, whatever it is. So that's net new plastic in the world. So we're using post-consumer recycled plastic. So that's kind of step one. Then step two is the fact that we are certified plastic net neutral. So that's another difference, just in case it's important to consumers out there. The data says that it is. That's partially what led us to do that. But I would also add, in my opinion, it's the right thing to do. I mean, if you go down a rabbit hole of plastic and just like the infrastructure, the recycling infrastructure, it's a mess. It's not perfect, just like any other industry. But just to say like, oh, it's not perfect, so we're not going to do anything about it, I think is just lazy. I mean, I think we've got to do what we can do given the tools available to us right now. And those tools are going to morph over time and will adapt. But in this exact environment, it's more expensive. It's harder to procure. Doesn't mean we don't do it. So I'd say from a product standpoint, that would be my answer. From a brand standpoint, I'll try to make this a little quick, but we realized that brands out there weren't targeting busy moms and dads. They weren't targeting guys like us. And it felt like this massive white space where we can go in and build a really solid sense of community and kind of just recognize that like you and me and all of the other parents in the room, like time is our most valuable asset and we have none of it. Like we've got to go work out at 4 a.m. if we want to work out at all. And it seemed like all these really, really reputable brands that I admire were going after the younger generation or going after the bros and the bodybuilding generation or going after general health and wellness, not really performance minded. And I looked around our community and I'm like, man, everyone I know is busting their butts in the gym. They're not in it to be single digit body fat percent. They're in it because it's their one slice of me time and value their fitness. And they're going to make sacrifices to make it work. So I would call that out as just something that makes us different is who built it, who it's built for, and from a marketing and like branding perspective, who we're going to be speaking to.
Love that. I can't recall a time when a brand really spoke to me in this unique season that I'm in, because you nailed it. That's what it is. It's like time is everything to me. Where I invest my time matters so much. And so I feel like if I'm aligned with the brand that like knows me and makes products for me, I think that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, doing our best. A lot of different sizes and shapes and colors and preferences within that group, so it's not there's no catch-all, but I think it's a good initial lens to look at is like, I could be missing the point here, but I look around me, I'm like, look at my buddies like you and up here in Northern Colorado, I'm like, man, everyone's got kids and they're trying to be a fantastic father or mother. They're also trying to prioritize their fitness. And a lot of times it's not easy to do that. It's kind of hairy, right? So yeah, we think we're onto something, man. Rep Fitness call it the parent organization has been so good to us, just in terms of support, shared services, you name it. So I've mentioned that it's been the hardest year of my career. That is true, but like, man, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Speaking of light at the end of the tunnel, great segue, because that light is December 9th when the world is going to have access to Purist Nutrition products. So that said, we're publishing this episode on the 8th. So people will be able to find Purist by the time they're listening to this. So where would you direct people to look at your products, explore, and hopefully try them out?
Yeah. Hey, that's the goal. Puristnutrition.com. That's, you can find everything there, from talked about sustainability, who the team is, new products coming out, all that fun stuff. Puristnutrition.com. Naturally, we will be listed on repfitness.com as well. You'll come to find, down the road, like when there is Rep Fitness, there also is Purist and vice versa. So we are one and the same addiction to quality and continuous improvement, all that stuff. So either one of those two sources, puristnutrition.com repfitness.com, and then Amazon as well. You mentioned it. Everyone buys their stuff from Amazon. So that's where we got to be.
Very good. I'll make sure I do my part and link to all the places so people can find. And well, look, I really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your insights. I hope people learned a lot about supplements, and really appreciate it, man. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, dude.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, dude. Thanks for having me, though. I really do appreciate it. Very honored to be chatting with you today.
My pleasure. Connor Shehan, everybody. See you next time. All right, everybody. So that is it for my conversation with Connor Shehan around all things supplements. I hope you learned a lot. After an interview usually wraps, my guest will kind of hang on for a little bit and we'll just chat. And normally a question will come out, well, how do you think it went, right? How do you think it went? And in this case, what I said to Connor was, look, I always judge my interviews and the episodes that I put out to the world around, did I learn something, right? Like, did I walk away from that conversation having gained some knowledge about the topic, and am I better for it? And what I said to Connor was, I absolutely learned. I learned a ton. So I'm so grateful that he joined the show and just kind of shared his insights and wisdom around the supplement industry and what to look for if you're looking for a quality supplement partner, I'll call it, because the supplements we choose have such an impact on our health. And that said, as I normally do, my top 5 takeaways from my interview with Connor. 1, third-party testing absolutely matters. At the end of the day, you want to make sure what you're putting in your body is safe, and making sure your supplement brand invests in third-party testing is crucial. Number 2, in the supplement world right now, there are a lot of risks if you're putting these unknown ingredients from these unknown brands into your body. And unfortunately, we don't know some of those long-term risks. So why take the risk? And back to number 1, just make sure that you're putting safe supplements into your body. Number 3, Connor's advice, I love it, that supplements are intended to do just that, supplement your overall healthy nutritional lifestyle. In other words, don't just rely on supplements, because you are missing some of the key macro and micronutrients that whole foods can provide. Number 4, I thought this was specific and interesting. When you look at labels and you look at products, especially supplements, more ingredients means more flavors, both natural and artificial, to mask the taste of those ingredients. So in other words, sometimes less is more when you're considering a supplement. And then number 5, Connor's top 5 supplements, not quite a Mount Rushmore because there are 5, but number 1, protein powder. Number 2, creatine. Number 3, hydration. Number 4, a solid quality multivitamin. And number 5, pre-workout. Let's go on that one. I could live off of that stuff. But those are my top 5 takeaways. Again, I hope you learned something from that conversation. Before we go, I always love to ask. I don't have to, but I like to ask. If you're still here and you're listening, it would mean the world to me if you would just take a moment to leave a 5-star rating for the show. If you did not like the episode, please don't leave a rating. I wouldn't like that. But if you liked it, leave a rating, maybe even ask a question in the reviews or leave a written review, which really helps us to find more people so we can help them grow Stronger Weekly. And then lastly, if you want to get in touch, we have an email. It's contact@strongerweekly.com. Again, that's contact@strongerweekly.com. We monitor our email. If you want to ask a question, sometimes our questions do wind up on our Ask Us Anything episode, which we do periodically. Or if you just want to give feedback and get in touch, we'd love to hear from you, because again, we do monitor that email. So again, thank you so much for joining the show. We hope you learned something, and we hope this very episode helped you grow Stronger Weekly this week. We'll see you next time.